As I'm sure most of you are well aware, Bushiroad is the company that creates Cardfight Vanguard, which, is the game that this whole channel is based around, but they also have a lot of other games that they've created and continue to make to this very day. So of course there was Buddyfight in the past, Luck and Logic, but also some ongoing games like Vice Schwartz, Rebirth for You, and plenty of others, right, that they've also assisted with. They make merchandise for card games and stuff like that, and it's not unusual for them to get involved with new card games and things like that, while also dedicating their work and power force into their existing games, mainly Vanguard and Vice. Now, on the 6th of January, so just about a month ago, there was a presentation for Shadowverse Evolve. Now, for those of you that don't know, Shadowverse is a very, very popular, like the #1 collectible card game, like online digital card game in Japan. And it's also my favorite digital card game as well, because I'm actually a day one player, and I was very, very attached to the game from the very get-go, because in high school, when I was in high school, Hearthstone had released, and it was really, really popular. So of course I also played it because I love card games, but it never really, like, it was never really my thing too much. I was never like too dedicated to it because I didn't like the art style, and just something about it just didn't attract me enough. And I was always waiting for an anime styled Hearthstone. And that's basically what Shadowverse was. And Shadowverse is so big in Japan that there are entire pro leagues. You can make a living out of it. There's university leagues that can get you into the pro leagues and things like that. And if you win the world championship, you win $1 million, which is a lot of money. And I always enjoyed the game from day one. It's had some pretty bad metas. It's had some pretty amazing metas, but it's always had a fun gameplay loop, and it's always had amazing art as well. Like my phone case is Shadowverse. I've collected these like IRL Shadowverse cards that they release as collectibles over the years of like the various cards that have come out, throughout the updates in the game. And just in general, I really like the game, to the point that I'm also one of the official commentators for the game now for the English scene. And so when they announced that there would be a physical card game for Shadowverse, I was like, first I was super hyped, but also I was like, wait, a digital card game is being made into physical? Like, how's that even gonna work? Because there's so many things about Shadowverse that only work because it's digital. But then the thing that really got me was that it is being manufactured by Bushiroad. So essentially, Cygames, the company that makes Shadowverse, are the ones that are like, doing the R&D, the actual like card effects and things like that. And then Bushiroad are the ones printing it, the ones sending it out to stores, and the ones doing like the player and tournament support for the game. And so the moment I saw Bushiroad's involvement, I was like, hold on a second, this is huge, because not only does this mean that this game is gonna be, made by Bushiroad, a company that I know and trust, but also Cygames, another company that I love their games. I'm a Granblue player, I'm a Shadowverse player, I'm a Dragalia Lost player. Like, Granblue Versus got me into fighting games. Like, I really do love Cygames as well. And so these two companies coming together felt like a dream come true, and it also makes me hope for like Granblue Fantasy collabs in Vanguard and things like that. And so on the 6th of January, they did a live stream together with Kidani as well as Kimura Yuito, so the two like big names of both companies, basically talking about the game and giving us some first information on it. So in this video, I will take on the mantle of the kind of like, I guess, spokesperson for both Bushiroad game communities and the Shadowverse community, and try to give you the information for the game, at least before it releases, because the game actually releases at the end of April in Japan. We sadly don't have an English release date for now, but it's already, we have quite a lot of information even just now, 2 months before the release. So first things first, the card size is Digimon/Vice/MTG, which is definitely quite nice. The actual card back does not look like this, it looks like this, so it is different from the digital version of the cards. You have a main deck of 40 to 50 cards, so that's kind of like the similar like limit as Yu-Gi-Oh has, where there is an upper limit and a lower limit, rather than like 50 plus how they've had it in certain games. And your deck is composed of 3 types of cards. You have followers, amulets, and spells. And so followers, of course, are basically your monster that you fight with. Spells are spells that you cast, and amulets are basically kind of like set spells in a way that exist on the board and either have a timer by when they disappear, or they exist for the duration of the game unless they are destroyed. And now one of the unique things about Shadowverse is that your followers can evolve in order to get buff stats as well as, bonus effects. And of course, it's also present in Shadowverse Evolve because of, the name. But only certain followers can evolve, and your evolving happens from a 10-card Evolve deck, which is basically like an extra deck in games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Vanguard and Premium. So essentially, you see an example here where you have a follower who needs to use 1 play point, which is your mana, in order to evolve over the certain card in your Evolve deck, which is the same card. And then it has certain effects, such as spawning several tokens that have, their presence on the board, and they will also be able to attack and defend. However, after an Evolve follower is destroyed, instead of going to the graveyard, it will be put back into the Evolve deck face up, just like a G-Unit in Vanguard, and you will no longer be able to use it, from my understanding. So that's a deck composition. But now there's also, of course, classes. So like clans in Vanguard, there are 6 different classes in Shadowverse Evolved, which is 2 less than the ones in the actual digital card game. So I'll give you a quick, brief explanation of each of them in order to give you an understanding of how they play, so that you also, if you want to pick up the game, know which starter deck you want to aim for. The first one is Forestcraft. So Forestcraft is all about spamming tokens of fairies and also doing various combos, because this deck, this class, wants you to play a certain number of cards in one turn in order to activate certain effects. So if you've played, let's say, 4 cards in one turn, then an effect maybe lets you draw an extra card, or things like that. So if you're a fan of something like Neo Nectar with a bit more of a combo aspect in Vanguard, then this will be the right deck for you. Then we have Swordcraft, which is my personal main. Swordcraft is all about summoning cards from deck and also just spawning a bunch of knights and things like that. So it's all just like field spam and then powering up that big field spam. So it's quite literally Royal Paladin from Vanguard. So if you're into the knight aesthetic and that kind of playstyle, then you have your fit right there. Havencraft is all about self-healing, healing yourself, and also board controlling your opponent's side and getting effects from having healed yourself. They also have a lot of amulets that have countdowns, which means that after a certain number of turns have passed, the amulet will destroy itself and certain effects will happen, such as drawing extra cards or summoning specific followers. So this is very much like Angel Feather, but with, like, you know, the healing aspect, and then especially the aesthetic is also very Angel Feathery. And of course, there's quite a bit of board control in this as well, because they just have a lot of board wipe spells for whatever reason that of course probably will make it into the physical TCG too. Dragoncraft is one that's kind of hard to compare to anything in Vanguard, but it is similar to other card games. So Dragoncraft is all about ramping, which means like buffing up your available mana by 1 or 2 more than your opponent, so you can play your big dragons and scary followers before your opponent can. So I don't really know what to compare to in terms of Vanguard, but basically like Kagero aesthetics, Narukami aesthetics are kind of what we're looking at here. Runecraft is a craft or class all about playing spells, and so these spells do a variety of things, whether it's spawning followers or destroying stuff on your opponent's board or drawing extra cards. So it's kind of like Oracle Think Tank plus Zorga kind of like meeting together. So if you're into that kind of aesthetic or that kind of playstyle, then that'll be very good for you as well. It also has an extra turn mechanic, so I guess if you're into Gear Chronicle, that's also kind of good. And finally, 2 classes in Shadowverse got put into 1 class in Shadowverse Evolved, which are Shadowcraft as well as Bloodcraft were put into 1 class called Nightmare. Nightmare encompasses 2 different playstyles. One of them is basically self-hitting, so basically pinging yourself your own life points in order to have strong effects like drawing cards or dealing damage to your opponent and things like that, as well as Graveyard Recursion, so summoning stuff back from your grave that died earlier in the match, and effects that happen when your followers are destroyed. So basically, you're looking at stuff like a Shadow Paladin plus Dark Irregulars aesthetic slash playstyle feel mixed into one. There is 1 class obviously missing, which is Portalcraft, which was kind of like a deck that cared about whether the cards in your deck were even or odd, which of course is pretty hard to implement into a physical TCG without taking up a huge amount of time, so it will not be in the physical TCG, but the cards from it in the digital card game will be implemented into other classes so that the aesthetic is still there. There are also neutral cards which can be used in virtually everything. Basically think of like Cray Elementals in Vanguard, so these are just strong cards that can be splashed in virtually anything, and so that is very, very good. And then there are also leader cards, which are kind of like flags in Buddy Fight, which represent basically which class you're playing, and these can be different types and have the original art, and they don't seem to have effects for now, but maybe in the future this could be something cool to explore as well. And basically throughout the game you're going to use your PP, which is play points, so your mana, in order to play your cards, whether they're followers, spells, or amulets, and of course you start at 1 at the start of the game, and the maximum that it goes up to is 10. So every turn you increase by 1, so your first turn is at 1, second turn is at 2, third turn is at 3, so by turn 10 you're at 10 play points, so you can play a lot more cards in 1 turn, but you can also choose not to play all of your followers or all of your cards and use all of your mana in 1 turn, and keep some for your opponent's turn, where you can use effects that have quick effects. These are basically effects that can be used during your opponent's turn to do such things such as destroy your opponent's stuff while they're attacking, or other kinds of disruption where you actually have a level of interaction between you and your opponent. This was not present in the original Shadowverse, because usually these digital card games don't make you do things during your opponent's turn, so it's really cool that they're kind of exploring this space that they couldn't do in the digital scene, but they are now in the physical version of the card game. Now, Shadowverse Evolved will also have a companion app, because if you've seen the playmat, there's a lot of things going on, right? There's a battle area which has a limit of 5 followers that can be played on it, or 5 things that can be put on it. Then you have the EX area, which is kind of like a second hand where your tokens and stuff go to at times. Then of course you have your graveyard, you have your deck, you have your evolve deck, and then the evolve points cards go somewhere there as well. You have your pile of tokens, and then you have the 2 counters for your available play points and your maximum play points, and a life counter. So there's so many things you have to prepare in order to play the game, which is pretty crazy. But luckily the companion app will actually have a lot of those things in it. The companion app allows you to have a leader skin to represent which leader you're playing, as well as your play point and life counter. So your total play points plus your play points as well as your life. And you can also scan leader cards to import them into the app, which is also quite nice. So this way, at least with the companion app, you don't have to bring as many things with you in order to play the game. You can just have your deck, your evolve deck, and your tokens, and you're ready to go. Now, the things that you would need to prepare for a game in order to actually play it are essentially your life counter, which is probably going to look like a buddy fight life counter, you know, where you like have a sliding gauge here that like keeps track of it for you. Then of course your playmat, which will have your, of course, the battle area, the EX area, the current play points and the maximum play points in the playmat, as well as the evolve deck, the evolve point cards, which let you refund evolve costs X times per game, depending if you go first or second, your tokens, and then of course your main deck plus your evolve deck, which you will actually play the game with. So there's quite a lot of things to prepare, which I think is my first kind of point of criticism, is that this is like, you know, you're gonna need some really big deck boxes to contain all of these cards, especially for those of us that like to double sleeve. And so that's the general gist of the game, right? So you use your play points to play cards. It's very similar to actual Shadowverse, but of course a lot of effects have been changed. Stuff like spell boost, which was a mechanic that said like depending on how many spells you played during a game, this card would become like a cheaper cost or it would do more. That has been changed to just look at how many spells are in your graveyard. And if you want to find out more about the actual gameplay and like the rules and stuff, I'm not going to be making a video about that just yet, but my good friend Grizome is actually covering that on his channel, and he has a really good video going over the first batch of information from the beta test, so you can check that out, link in the description. And I think he's also going to be posting more videos about the topic in the future, so make sure you subscribe to him as well. On my side, I'll probably wait for the actual start decks to release and then maybe do like a tutorial video or something on my second channel. Also link in the description for that too. I do want to quickly talk about the products that they announced for the game though, because I think this is quite exciting, and the price points are a little bit surprising considering the current era of card games, and especially how cheap start decks are between Vanguard's 333 yen start decks and Digimon's like 500 yen start decks if I'm not mistaken for like the first ones, and Pokemon does like 700 yen start decks. So they've been on the low for quite a bit now, but then Shadowverse comes in with their 6 start decks, which retail for 1,650 yen, which is kind of like the usual price of like $15. But they do come with a lot of things, right? They come with a 50 card deck, a leader card, your token cards necessary for that deck, a rule sheet, a play sheet, which I guess is your playmat, and then each item set. So I'm assuming this means like maybe like counters for power and like the life counter maybe and things like that, I hope. And so you get all of these for like, there's one start deck of each class, so there's 6 different start decks, and this retails again for 1,650 Japanese yen. They also mentioned during their live stream that there will also be a premium start deck introduced, which will probably just contain all 6 in one, so probably gonna go for a pretty good price too. So that's something to look out for, I guess, if you want to pick up all of them at once. For now, I don't think we know the ratios of the cards, like whether you can just buy one start deck and have everything, right? But if they ask for more than one, that would be pretty expensive. And I think, knowing Bushiroad's recent design philosophies, I think they usually do start decks where you buy one and you have everything. They also announced the first booster set, which will be releasing also at the end of April, I believe April 28th if I'm not mistaken. So this has 16 packs per box and 8 cards per pack, which is a pretty rare number of cards per pack, but each pack will always have a gold rare or higher per pack, which is equivalent to a double rare. And so this is 6,160 yen per box as well, so about $55 per box, which is also fairly pricey, and there is a lot of high rarity cards per set, so I wonder what the pull rates will be like here too. So there's a total of 180 total cards in the first set, with 22 legendaries, 37 golds, 57 silvers, and 64 bronzes. Now keep in mind that each card that can evolve has a regular version, pre-evolve, and a post-evolve version, so chances are that like the 22 legends are 11 cards with base forms and evolve forms equaling 22. And it's also cool that they said that there'll be illustrations in the game that are not actually from the digital card games, so actual original illustrations for the physical game, which I think is pretty hype. The rarity system, for those wondering, legend equals triple rare, gold equals double rare, silver equals rare, and bronze equals common, right? It's kind of, I think you can figure it out just from hearing the amount of rarities, right? And so for the game itself, there are actually beta tests being held in Japan right now. There was one just a couple of weeks ago, and so some of the people that went to them are writing blog posts about the rules. I will link one of the main ones in the description as well, so you can kind of look through things with the Google Translate if you want to know more. Or again, just check out Chrysom's video where he basically goes over the rules that were seen from the beta test. But of course, these are subject to change because the beta tests are there to see if there's anything, you know, super alarming that needs to be addressed before the game releases. For myself, I will continue to cover the game, I think, on my second channel periodically, but you can expect like box openings and perhaps some gameplay videos as well on my second channel if you want to see that. So do check it out. I also upload actual content for Shadowverse itself, the digital card game, on that channel too, so feel free to give that a look. And also, of course, if you want to order your own product, you can get it on amiami.com, and they already have pre-orders for all of the start decks as well as the first booster set. So you can basically find everything you need over there. Oof, and that's basically it. So I wanted to give you guys a first look at the Shadowverse Evolve TCG and kind of go over all the different information that we know about it so far. For me personally, it's really exciting. It sounds a little bit problematic in like setting up everything for a deck, because, or like to play a game, because you need to bring so many things. Makes me appreciate Vanguard's simplicity of just 50 card deck, like no life counters, no dice, no nothing. 50 card deck, you don't even need a playmat, right? It's just sit down and play. So the amount of things to be brought is a little bit alarming, and it sounds like a lot of stuff to keep track of, which is like why this game works really well digitally, is that the game keeps track of them for you and you just play the game. But I hope that the companion app makes things easy enough that I can just play on a regular playmat with no markings on it, like how for Digimon I always have to play with a playmat with a freaking memory counter on it, which I really hate sometimes because I want to play, you know, on a regular playmat without any markings on it. But alas, we'll see how things go and how things look when the game actually releases. So yeah, if you're a fan of Shadowverse, make sure to give the game a look. I think it looks really, really cool. And of course, if you also want to see more cool Shadowverse stuff, I do commentary for the official esports circuit for the game in the English scene. You can check out SVO Esports, where you'll see me commentating at least, you know, once a month, every so often, whenever we have events for the Shadowverse Open, so you can also check that out. But anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for me today. I hope you guys liked today's video. A little bit different, but I think it's still very relevant because I know a lot of Vanguard players do play Shadowverse and would be interested in this kind of game as well. And you know, fingers crossed that the game gets an English release, because Shadowverse is quite popular in English and like in the Western world, so it would be cool if it does. Anyway, guys, that's gonna be it for me today. If you liked the video, please do give it a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe as well. I would really, really appreciate it. But otherwise, I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.